Breaking news this afternoon, the January 6th committee in their final public hearing this morning saying they believe that former President Donald Trump committed several felonies related to the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol. It's now up to the Department of Justice whether to act and actually charge the president based on those referrals. The DOJ has their own investigation, which is ongoing. So let's get some more depth on what all of this means. Ian Farrell is a criminal law professor over at the University of Denver. Ian, what do these criminal referrals mean?
Well, there's a couple of parts to that question. One is, what do they mean in terms of the technical or legal effect that they have? These referrals have no direct legal effect. So it is still the decision of the Department of Justice and specifically the special counsel who was working on this case to decide whether or not to proceed with any of these charges. However, they do have a powerful symbolic effect. They may have a political effect because what the committee is saying is, we very strongly believe that we have the evidence that is sufficient to prove beyond reasonable doubt all of the elements of each of the crimes that they have indicated or suggested to Congress with regard to both President Trump and former President Trump and John Eastman.
Now, in the world of criminal law, how significant are the charges that were referred? Not the referrals themselves, but when we're listing off those actual charges, how significant are those?
They're significant. So they're felonies. They're felonies which could potentially result in someone being imprisoned for 5 or 10 years. That's a little bit more detail would have to be figured out to find out exactly what the likely range of penalties is. But they are significant offenses. And just to remind everyone, there are 4 specific charges that were referred specifically with regard to both former President Trump and John Eastman. So they were obstructing an official proceeding, conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to make false statements to the United States, and aiding and abetting or giving aid and comfort to an insurrection. And so each of those, even standing alone, are substantial crimes. And there is also the possibility that former President Trump and others could be found guilty of more than one charge of each of those offenses, more than one instance of them. So in the committee's executive summary that was disseminated just recently, they indicate 3 or 4 ways in which the former president attempted to prevent certification of the election going forward. And so if he attempted to do that 3 or 4 times, then he could be charged with 3 or 4 counts of that particular crime.
Something else that's important to keep in mind. But for any of this to matter, the Justice Department would have to act. Do these referrals give the DOJ any additional push or reason to act?
So the DOJ has been fairly emphatic and insistent regarding saying that it will decide on its own independent judgment as to whether or not to proceed. But they have already been doing their own investigation, and there is substantial evidence, even in the summary report that's already been handed out, laid out fairly logically in terms of, here's the offense, here's what the prosecution would have to prove in order to get a conviction, here's the evidence that we have that would support that. They say we believe we have more than sufficient evidence for each of these elements. And they also say, here are some other things that the prosecutor could do that we weren't able to do. So, for example, they mention people who refused to comply with subpoenas, and the DOJ has stronger subpoena power. The grand jury has more ability to get documents and to get testimony. And so the report is laying out what the chair referred to as a roadmap to justice, that if it chooses to, the prosecutors could follow.
Ian Farrell from the University of Denver, thank you so much for the time.
You're welcome. Thank you.